What's going on? So let's talk about this protest that just recently happened here in Dearborn, Michigan, uh, against the Islamification of the United States, right? So it was a protest against the rise of Islam here in the United States, and Dearborn is has the largest Muslim population in the United States. And they have the largest mosque on this side of the world, right? In the Western Hemisphere, in Dearborn, here in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, I'm born and raised in Detroit. So I'm speaking on this as a native Detroiter, as someone who has firsthand experience of what it's like to deal with the Muslims out of Dearborn, all right? And I spoke on this a few videos back, and so I'm gonna highlight. I'm gonna show two different mindsets when it comes to this issue of Dearborn, all right? And I mentioned this in my other previous video, right? So there are two camps of Detroiters, right? The one camp being, we don't mess with the Muslims because they don't mess with us, all right? In Detroit, the Dearborn Muslims, they own all the infrastructure, pretty much, right, in Detroit. Grocery stores, meat markets, corner stores, gas stations, and so on, all right? When you learn the history of Dearborn and how Henry Ford, he imported all these Arabs back in the days to counter the rise of the blacks that were coming from the South to work in the auto industry. So this was a Henry Ford push to counter that, because Henry Ford was a known racist. You know, I know we like to tout him as the great innovator that he is, that he was, but he was also a flaming racist, okay? Let's just stick to the facts. And so to counter the rise of all the blacks that were moving from the South to work in his factories, he began to import all these Arabs, and that's how they gained this foothold in the United States there in Dearborn. Now there are two camps, like I said, one being us, the Detroit. There's one camp of Detroiters. They don't mess with none of the Muslims out of Dearborn, because the Muslims in Dearborn have notoriously been racist and against the blacks in Detroit as a whole, right? And then there's the other Detroiter, the ones who defend and are okay with the Muslims out of Dearborn only because they are business partners, right? When it comes to getting money, which Detroiters, you know, the street cats, we get money. We some money getting people for sure, right? There's no doubt about that. And so when it comes to getting money, you didn't have a problem dealing with the Arabs, the Muslims out of Dearborn at all, right? So they became your business partners. And that's how it is in the world of making money. Like I said, people who are all about making money, they will make a business deal with Satan himself if it gained them an extra dollar. It's just the facts, right? But outside of that, if you weren't a hustler, a street cat, if you wasn't into making money, you didn't have nothing to do with these Muslims because they had nothing to do with you. Those are the two camps that come out of Detroit, right? And so to bring contrast to this, there's Anton Daniels, right? Now, Anton is born and raised in Detroit. He's become a multi-millionaire, right? But he's not a street cat at all. You know, he's never went that lifestyle, that's okay, that's fine, right? In Detroit, he would be known as a buster, right? He's a buster. And being a buster is not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as a buster stays in a buster's lane, right? And so when you have a buster that begins to speak on street stuff, you stepping outside your lane. You never been involved in street life activities. You ain't never ran with the street cats at all, right? You've been a good boy his whole life. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. Don't get me wrong, okay? But so his take is on this whole Dearborn protest was that the protesters were paid protesters and that they're only doing it for clout. See, he didn't take the side of the Americans who are saying, no, this is the rise of Islam and we need to stop what's going on in Dearborn, and not just in Dearborn, but across the U.S. as a whole with the rise of Islam. He would never do that because he's in business with the Dearborn Muslims. He even, if you go watch his channel, he did a show yesterday discussing this very topic of the Dearborn protest. And like I said, his whole thing was, oh, they're good people out there, and I used to work out there, and he has, these are his friends, these are his business partners. The Muslims out in Dearborn, of course, he's all about making money. He would make a deal with the devil if it got him some money. And the only reason I say this, I don't necessarily have an ought against him personally as a man, right? He professes to be a Christian, and as a Christian, why wouldn't you push back against the Muslims? Because it is the rise of Islam. And he's not going to do it. He has Muslim business partners, obviously out of Dearborn. So, you don't want to upset the apple cart. He likes to say you don't never want to fumble the bag. So when it comes to standing up for Christianity and standing up for truth or fumbling the bag, he's going to choose not fumbling the bag every time, right? And so, that's he has to work that out in his own self. As a Christian man myself, I have no respect for somebody like that when you choose your bag over the faith, right? And so the whole protest in Dearborn is all about the rise of Islam, right? And these people, I know they like to project themselves as being peaceful. We can all get along, Americans. That is a lie. That religion does not allow for coexistence. You either become a Muslim or you die. That is in their Quran. That is a tenet of their faith, right? And so all that we can coexist and get along, that's a lie. That's deception. And we seem to forget so readily that not too long ago, they just broke up a terrorist cell. They had planned a terrorist attack, I believe at Cedar Point, out of Dearborn. Are we surprised? That is the hub of, I'm sure, Islamic terrorists, rhetoric and training, right? It's the largest Muslim population here in the United States. It just stands to reason that is where they would be creating jihadist terrorists, right? And so don't fall for the hype. I know Anton Daniels, he has his own take on it. He like to say, I'm gonna give you the truth and his honest take. It comes from a business-minded perspective. He's not going to tell you the truth of it. He's not going to push back against Islam because obviously he has Muslim business partners, right? And seeing that's what happens when you become a bag chaser, as they say, and you're all about making money. You'll have business deals with those who are against the very faith that you say you are about, right? And so I just want to really get on here and just show two different perspectives when it comes to that. This whole protest in Dearborn is about the rise of Islam. It's not about just these people are clout chasing, as Anton will want you to believe. They're only protesting because they want clout. No, Anton, that's not why they out there protesting. They out there protesting because of a rise of Islam. They out there protesting because now these people want to put on loudspeakers the call of prayer 5 times a day. They're out there protesting because the rise of Islam is spreading into our politics, into the very fabric of a society. They are infiltrating. They have been infiltrating before we were born. Every Detroiter knows that. And like I said, there are two camps when it comes to Dearborn residents, to the Muslims here in Michigan, out of Detroit. You either are for them, and if you're for them, it's only because you're making money, or you're against them. It's just the way it is, right? And I'm telling you, as a native-born Detroiter growing up in the streets of Detroit, right? And you know what? I was thinking about this the other day. I spent 14 years in a federal prison. There was only one Muslim, a real Muslim, an Arab Muslim, right? We know there are a lot of guys go to prison and all of a sudden they become Muslims. We understand that. But I'm talking about this guy was an Arab. He was an Arab Muslim from Detroit, right? Out of 14 years, he was the only one that I know that was locked up in the federal system. That was with us. He was one Arab Muslim out of Detroit that was in the feds. That I always thought that was amazing because, truth be told, they are into every kind of criminal activity you can imagine. They are out in the streets doing every criminal thing as well as everybody else when it comes to getting money. But the difference is, they're more organized, they're more regulated. They don't tell on each other. Who? That's who we used to get our guns from back in the days. So I'm telling you, as somebody who was in it for real, who come from the streets of Detroit, who was in that life, who knows all about the real deal when it comes to the issue of these Muslims out of Dearborn. Yeah, they're not about coexisting with us as Christian Americans at all. They're all about taking over this country and making everybody become Muslims, or you be put to death if you choose not to. That is the tenet of their faith. That is the tenet of their religion. I know there are many people out there who like to say, well, not all Muslims are like that. True indeed. Not everybody who calls himself a Muslim is a radical, but that religion itself is radical. So the non-radical Muslim is not going to stop the radical Muslims. And the radical Muslims, they will take out the non-radical Muslims if they get in their way. The faith of Islam is radical. The faith of Islam is violent. Is barbaric. Okay, and so that's what we as Christians, as Americans, we are starting to stand up and push back against what we see as an Islamic takeover of the United States, just like they have taken over the UK and many countries over in Europe. And now they are in the process of slowly but surely gaining grounds politically, gaining grounds in major cities here in the United States, and are pushing forward their agenda, right? And if nobody speaks up against it, which is us as Christians, right? Us as American Christians, which we know that this country was founded on Christian values, right? We're pushing back because we know that Christianity is the one true faith and Islam is a false, violent faith. And so that's what that whole protest in Dearborn is about. It's not about, the writer just sent and paid protesters to clout chase, as Anton would get you to believe. The only reason he will want you to believe that is because he's obviously has business dealings with Muslims. And, he's not going to fumble the bag over the truth or whatever. All right, that's all. I just had to get on here and just offer my point of view on the matter. Somebody who else has been born and raised from Detroit and who was out there really in the streets getting to it. You know what I'm saying? And not just, All right. Well, if you like what I do, hit me with a sub, a like, and a comment. I welcome it all. I got a goal of 1,000 subs, so we at like 680 now. So if you haven't already, hit me with a sub, help support the channel. And until next time.